They never told you the full story. They taught you how to sit still, how to obey bells like Pavlov's dogs, how to memorize facts you'd never use, and how to answer questions designed not to spark curiosity but to measure compliance. But what if the system wasn't broken? What if it was designed, precisely, to keep your soul from waking up? To suppress that dangerous spark of individuality inside you, the spark that Dostoevsky wrote about. The part of you that rebels, questions, suffers, and dares to wonder. What if life is more than this? This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a philosophical diagnosis. Because when Dostoevsky looked at his society and we look at ours, we see the same thing. People trained to follow rules rather than truth. People taught what to think, but never how to feel deeply or see clearly. People prepared for labor, but not for meaning, and we call it education. Chapter 1. The Classroom as a Factory for Souls. The school system didn't arise from a dream of enlightenment. It arose from the needs of the Industrial Revolution. It was built to produce obedient workers, predictable citizens, not visionaries, poets, rebels, or spiritual warriors. From the first grade, the child is trained to sit in rows like assembly lines, follow authority without question, compete against peers for artificial rewards, memorize and regurgitate, not inquire and create. As Ivan Illich warned in Deschooling Society, schooling confuses teaching with learning, great advancement with education, a diploma with competence. And as Dostoevsky's writings constantly echo, when a society removes meaning from suffering and turns education into indoctrination, it breeds the most dangerous kind of human, a hollow one. Dostoevsky understood that human beings don't just need facts, they need freedom of conscience, a deeper kind of self-awareness. But schools don't nourish the soul. They divide it, dismember it, and train it to seek approval instead of truth. And the most terrifying part? It works. Chapter 2. Dostoevsky's Warning, the Grand Inquisitor. In The Brothers, Karamazov, Dostoevsky gives us one of the most disturbing portrayals of education, power, and obedience in Western literature, the chapter known as the Grand Inquisitor. In it, Christ returns to Earth in Seville during the Spanish Inquisition. He performs miracles, and the people adore him, but the Church arrests him. Why? Because the Grand Inquisitor tells him that humanity no longer wants freedom. They want bread, security, authority, someone else to carry the burden of thinking for them. "We have corrected thy work," the Inquisitor says. He means, we've replaced the terror of freedom with the comfort of control. And people love us for it. Now look again at modern education. It promises safety, employment, credentials. But it strips you of spiritual danger, the thrill of failure, the ecstasy of unknowing. Just like the Grand Inquisitor, modern education trades the terrifying liberty of self-discovery for a pre-approved path. And Dostoevsky would ask, is that really education, or indoctrination? Chapter 3. Training the Mind, Forgetting the Soul. Dostoevsky was not just a novelist, he was a spiritual psychologist. He saw the invisible war within the human soul, the war between the false self and the true self. Modern schooling, for all its strengths, sides with the false self, the self that conforms, that gets good grades, that fits the mold. It rewards performance, not presence, productivity, not poetry, answers, not questions. Carl Jung, in alignment with Dostoevsky, wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." And today it's not just the parents, it's the whole system forcing each child into a box that isn't made for them. We don't teach kids to ask, who am I, really? We teach them to ask, how do I get a gold star? But a gold star is not a compass, it's a leash, and when the soul is trained to obey rather than explore, to memorize rather than question, it begins to atrophy, until the child becomes an adult, and the adult forgets that he ever had a soul. Chapter 4. The Curriculum of Control. Education, we're told, is the key to freedom. But ask yourself, freedom to do what? To think critically? To live with meaning? To discover your deepest self? Or is it just the freedom to climb a social ladder built by other people? Dostoevsky would say, "We've mistaken training for transformation. The modern curriculum is less about wisdom and more about domestication. It subtly teaches obedience over originality, utility over beauty, uniformity over uniqueness. You're tested on math, but not on empathy. You're graded on science, but never on the strength of your character. You study world history, but not your own story." And in this vacuum of meaning, we get generations who know how to make a living, but not why they're alive. Dostoevsky would call this a slow spiritual death, an education that teaches everything except how to be human. Chapter 5. The Underground Man's Rebellion. In Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky introduces one of literature's most brilliant and bitter rebels, the underground man. He's overeducated, hyper-aware, and utterly alienated. Why? Because he sees what society wants from him, to be rational, efficient, obedient, and he hates it. He despises the very system that taught him how to think, but never what to live for. He is the inevitable product of an education system that teaches compliance without contemplation. In one passage, he mocks the utopian dream of a perfectly rational society, saying, "Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering." Why? Because suffering reveals the truth of the soul. It cracks open our illusions. But schools teach us to avoid suffering, to avoid failure, to avoid risk, and so we lose the very things that make life worth living. Dostoevsky's underground man is inconvenient, unpleasant, raw, but he is also free because he sees the prison bars the rest of us deny. And sometimes, to be educated in the truest sense, we must become underground men ourselves. We must unlearn what the system taught us to believe. Chapter 6. Degrees of Delusion, the Educated Prison. Today, a person can go through 20 years of schooling, graduate with honors, collect degrees, and never once be taught how to think for themselves. Because memorization is not wisdom. Degrees are not depth. And intelligence without self-awareness becomes a mask for delusion. Dostoevsky knew this well. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov is brilliant, maybe too brilliant. He justifies murder through cold logic. He believes he's above morality, above consequence. But his mind, trained in reason, has become detached from his soul. The deeper message, education without conscience is not enlightenment, it's madness. Today we see this in real life. Brilliant minds building destructive technologies, experts rationalizing systems that cause human suffering, educated elites disconnected from the realities of the human condition. Dostoevsky warned us, the greatest evils are often committed not by the ignorant, but by the overeducated who have lost their connection to the sacred. So what good is an education that severs you from your own humanity? What's the point of knowledge if it doesn't make you more alive? Chapter 7. The Real Purpose of Learning, Awakening the Soul. Dostoevsky didn't hate knowledge. He wasn't anti-intellectual. What he despised was dead knowledge, facts without feeling, logic without love, systems without soul. He believed education should be a path to awakening, to ask the forbidden questions. What does it mean to be truly free? Why do I suffer, and what does it teach me? What is the purpose of my life beyond success, approval, or achievement? These are not questions that get you high marks. They don't appear on standardized tests. But they are the questions that make life worth living. The tragedy of our education system is that it doesn't even create space for them. It creates workers, not seekers, employees, not explorers, producers, not prophets. But the soul doesn't care about your resume. It wants meaning, mystery, depth. And Dostoevsky believed the role of learning was not to reduce the world to data, but to expand the heart until it could hold the entire spectrum of human experience. Chapter 8. Educating the Soul Through Suffering. Dostoevsky believed suffering was not a curse, it was a teacher. In his darkest works, suffering doesn't destroy the character, it reveals them. In The Brothers Karamazov, Father Zosima says, "Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart." Let that settle in. Pain is not the opposite of education. It's the part most schools avoid, but life insists on teaching. You won't find a syllabus on heartbreak. You won't get graded on how you face loss or betrayal. But these are the crucibles that forge the self. School teaches you to analyze, but not to endure, to write essays, but not to hold grief, to debate ideas, but not to live them. And this is where Dostoevsky's vision cuts deepest, because true education, the kind that liberates, often begins after your grades stop mattering, after you've lost something you thought was essential, after the identity given to you by school, parents, and society collapses. Only then does the real learning begin. Chapter 9. The most dangerous student. The one who thinks. The most dangerous person in any system is not the violent one, but the aware one. Dostoevsky feared not rebellion, but blind conformity. He believed schools were failing when they produced polite, agreeable citizens who never questioned the foundations of the world they inherited. Why? Because those people become perfect instruments of totalitarianism. They do not question, they obey. They feel educated, but they are indoctrinated. He saw it in the bureaucracy of Tsarist Russia. We see it today in corporate institutions, government systems, and even academia itself. The tragedy? People don't even know they've been tamed. They quote Plato but have never met their soul. They can dissect Hamlet but have never cried reading it. They believe they're educated, because no one taught them what that really means. So, ask yourself, are you thinking your own thoughts? Or are you a mouthpiece for a system that benefits from your silence? Because the moment you start thinking independently, deeply, dangerously, spiritually, you've already stepped outside the classroom. And into truth. Chapter 10. Dostoevsky's Forgotten Classroom. If Dostoevsky ran a school, what would it look like? No textbooks, no tests, no rankings. Instead, you would read poetry under candlelight. You would be asked to sit in silence with your pain. You'd have to write a letter to your future self before your first lesson. You'd learn to spot the lies you tell yourself and learn how to stop telling them. Instead of obedience, you'd be taught courage. Instead of memorizing answers, you'd be taught to fall in love with questions. In Dostoevsky's classroom, the subject isn't math or science or literature. The subject is the soul. Because what good is mastering algebra if you don't know how to live without hating yourself? What good is writing a thesis if you've never spoken your truth aloud? What good is becoming successful if your success means nothing to your spirit? The lesson Dostoevsky left us is not to abandon education, but to reclaim it. To remember that real education begins when you confront the mystery of your own existence. And no school, not even the best one, can teach that to you. Only life can. Only suffering can. Only you can. The curriculum of freedom. Let's come back to the beginning. What if what they teach you in school is meant to limit you? Not out of malice. But because the system was never designed to teach liberation, it was designed to teach order. To train you, not awaken you. To reward performance, not wisdom. To shape you into a cog in a machine, not the author of your own life. But Dostoevsky whispers to us from the margins of every forgotten book, every overlooked sentence, every uncomfortable question you've been told not to ask. The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for. So here is your final exam. Are you living your truth, or are you performing someone else's expectations? Are you thinking your own thoughts, or echoing what you were trained to repeat? Are you educated in the ways of the world, or are you still illiterate in the language of your own soul? Because the real revolution begins when you stop asking what school expects of you, and start asking what your spirit demands from life. Dostoevsky didn't write for the classroom. He wrote for the awake, for the broken, for the ones who dared to question everything. He wrote for you. So if this video reached you at the right time, maybe you're ready to become what no school can prepare you for: a free soul.